If you've clicked on this video, you're most probably planning a trip to Istanbul, Turkey, to which I say fantastic choice. Istanbul is quite easily one of the most stunning cities I've ever been to, so much so that even as I'm recording this, I'm already thinking about when I can do a return trip. That said, planning my first visit there was, shall we say, slightly intimidating. I was concerned about the language barrier, if I would like the food, and also, let's be real, all the scams that everybody's been talking about online. And so in today's video, I'm going to be covering 15 rookie mistakes that almost every first-time visitor to Istanbul, Turkey makes, which is a culmination of the information I learned through research prior to my trip and also through mistakes that I personally made during my trip. And notice how I said mistakes that almost every first-time visitor makes, because that's not going to be you after you've watched this video, as you will know better. And we'll also be ready to experience one of the most beautiful cities on earth like a pro. And so without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? With the first and perhaps most important mistake to not make to be not checking your visa requirements prior to your trip. Yes, if you're from these countries, you can actually obtain a visa upon arrival, but honestly, why would you want to hang out at the airport longer than you have to, especially when you can sort this out online prior to your trip to make your arrival from the airport to the city more efficient? Of course, you could also be from the European Union or from other European countries, as well as countries such as Japan and South Korea that have visa-free treaty agreements in place. And thus, if you're from these countries, you do not need a visa to enter Turkey. However, if you're a subscriber, first of all, welcome back. Most of you will be from Australia or the United States, which means that we are going to need a visa to enter. Do not worry though, as the e-visa application process is fairly straightforward. Head on over to this website to apply. I got mine almost immediately after completing the application via email, but do note that the application will cost you $66. Some other important things you need to know about the e-visa include that the fee can also vary depending on your passport, and also that refund or change of dates are not allowed. So if you do change your trip date, you will need to apply for a brand new e-visa. Another rookie mistake that you do not want to make is to not sort out your mobile data connection prior to your trip, as the SIM cards that are being sold at the airport are going to be a much more expensive option. And whether you like it or not, you are going to need mobile data, as you're going to need it to use Google Maps, translating menus and street signs, and also to stay in touch with the other members in your traveling group. And if you're a subscriber of mine, you would know that my personal preference is for eSIMs, and like any good savvy traveler, I do like comparing my options to determine the best bang for my buck. And so I honestly think that it's between the eSIMs offered by Olafly and Klook. Both offer unlimited data for a set number of days and are priced fairly close to each other. However, you do get an extra 10% off if you use my Klook code, and so that would be the option that I would recommend. In fact, that was the option that I used on my trip. Hey guys, Editing Steve here. Something that I forgot to mention is that Turkey has blocked several eSIM brands, including the ones that I've mentioned in this video, but they will still work if you purchase and activate them prior to your trip. So no matter which eSIM you go with, I highly recommend you activate it prior to your flight taking off, so that you're not going to face any eSIM activation issues when you arrive in Istanbul and can pretty much hit the ground running. I also think many do not realize exactly how far the Istanbul Sabiha Gökçen airport is to the city center, and figure that they would just work out how to get to the city when they get there, which is, by the way, the surest way to get scammed. I actually highly recommend you figure out exactly which option you're going to take prior to your trip. And so in this next section, I'm going to throw out a couple of options. Which one you end up picking would depend on your budget and your travel arrangements, as well as tell you some of the things that you need to avoid. I actually flew in with a few other people, so we booked a shuttle service to our hotel. It cost us about €60 between the three of us, which after a long flight from Australia we felt was worth it. But we were also hit by our first scam here. The driver, although booked via the hotel, wanted to charge us an additional 15 AUD for getting us there faster, which we ended up paying, by the way, because we thought it wasn't an outrageous amount, and we also wanted to avoid confrontation. However, for the record, he did not in fact get us there faster. It took him just as long, if not longer, than what Google Maps prescribed. And so if I was to do it again, I probably wouldn't book a shuttle service via the hotel. Instead, I would book a private airport transfer via a trustworthy site such as Klook. As you can see here, the prices are much lower than what we paid, and also as it's already paid upfront via Klook, there will be no hidden fees. I've placed a link for this in the description box in case you're interested. However, I do understand that some of you might be traveling on a budget, or perhaps you're a solo traveler, and so paying €60 to get from the airport to the city is simply just not worth it. In which case, your other options would be to catch public transport. There are two bus options, the Hawaii's shuttle bus and the public bus. I've included information on their scheduled departures from from the airport as well as their drop-off points throughout the city in my description box for your reference. Though if you were going down the public transport route, I would recommend catching the metro into the city, as that way you would be able to avoid a lot of the traffic, something that we faced when we caught the car into the city, by the way. And that leads quite nicely into this next mistake, which is to not get an Istanbulkart, a card that you would need not only to ride the metro into the city, but also to take all forms of public transportation in Istanbul, including buses, trains, and trams. Yes, you can use credit cards as a payment option, but if you're staying in Istanbul for anything more than a couple of days and plan to use a lot of public transportation, the Istanbulkart is definitely going to save you money. You can get the card at these yellow and light blue machines, which are located on the second floor of the airport and also pretty much at any public transport hub throughout the city. Let me just give you a quick look-see. Change your language to English preferably. You can get an Istanbulkart for 165 Turkish lira, and you can actually pay in cash or credit debit card, as you can see here. To give you a rough idea though, public transport costs around 27 Turkish lira for metro, tram and buses, and ferries can cost around 38 Turkish lira. But I also wish to mention two additional things here. One, the Istanbulkart can actually be shared by up to 5 people, and so if you're traveling with family and friends, that's worth knowing. And two, another option worth considering is the Istanbul Unlimited Public Transport card, which are available from 1 to 7 days that you can get via Klook. What are they? They are physical cards that are delivered directly to most centrally located hotels within 1 business day, and as the name suggests, allow you unlimited rides on all forms of public transport in Istanbul for the purchase period. Of course, whether or not you need to purchase this unlimited travel card depends on how much public transport you need to take. As mentioned before, the baseline cost is around $1 to $2 per ride on a bus, train, tram or ferry, so this card would only make sense if you're a solo traveler who is doing a lot of public transport, or if you're traveling as a family. Link to more information on this particular card in my description box for your reference. Of course, another way to save on transportation costs would be to strategically stay somewhere that is within walking distance to most of the places that you want to see, which is why rookie mistake number 5 is not strategically planning where you want to stay beforehand. And now, whilst Istanbul has plenty of beautiful areas, if you're a first-time visitor, I would actually recommend you stay in the Sultanahmet area. That would place you within walking distance to some of the most popular must-see spots in Istanbul, including the Hagia Sophia, Blue Mosque, and the Basilica Sistine. I personally stayed at the Henna Hotel, which cost me around $144 a night. My room had a super comfortable bed, their free breakfast was delicious, and the front desk manager / staff service was A+. Speaking of their free breakfast, you can also choose to have it at the rooftop with views of the Blue Mosque and Hagia Sophia. And as I only ever recommend things that I've personally tried, that would be the hotel that I would recommend. That said, I would most probably stay in a different area on my return trip. Specifically, I would choose to stay in the Beyoğlu area, as it is full of delicious bakeries, cafes, and boasts some of the city's most beautiful Ottoman and European style architecture. Though controversial opinion, I absolutely loved staying in the Sultanahmet area. Yes, people are gonna say it's touristy, but that's because it is, and we are tourists. Being so close to some of the most popular tourist spots in Istanbul meant that I could get to some spots earlier to minimize queuing and crowds. And that is why rookie mistake number 6 is not heading over to some of the most popular spots first thing in the morning, as you would not only avoid the crowds, but also personally, I think the morning is the best time to see these buildings. I mean, this is what the Blue Mosque and the Hagia Sophia look like in the morning, and this is what the Galata Tower looks like in the morning. You will, for a very rare moment in time, witness some of the usually busy streets empty, and that to me is priceless. You may, however, at some points need to catch a cab. I personally took one to see Otokoy at sunrise, but if you do, please do not under any circumstances flag a random cab, as the chances of you being overcharged in this instance is high. Instead, use Uber or their local cab app Buy Taxi. Now, Uber works a bit different here. Instead of getting a car, you will actually be booking a cab. However, you'll be doing so via the Uber app, which not only means that the price is transparent and upfront, but it would also mean that you avoid any potential language barriers, and you will also have a record of the price of the trip. Very important. While you may or may not be catching a cab, there's one thing thing that's for sure. You are going to be doing a lot of walking. So please do not commit rookie mistake number 8, which is not bringing a pair of comfortable walking shoes. The streets around Istanbul are commonly cobbled, uneven and hilly, and so a comfortable pair of walking shoes instead of, say, a pair of stilettos or sandals is not only going to serve you well but also prevent you from falling over. Speaking about proper attire, that leads us quite nicely into rookie mistake number 9, which is not wearing the right attire when visiting mosques. As you know, Istanbul is predominantly a Muslim country, which means a lot of stunning mosques to visit, such as the Blue Mosque, but in order to enter, you have to wear the proper attire. For women, you would specifically need a scarf to cover your hair. Now you can rent, borrow or buy one when visiting these mosques, but there is the hassle of lining up to get it and then lining up to return if you were borrowing it. And so to prevent all of that hassle, I would recommend just bringing a scarf. For both men and women, you will need to take off your shoes to enter the mosque, so I do recommend you wear some socks. There is also the obvious, especially if you're a woman, but please avoid wearing anything too revealing. Speaking about entering tourist spots, another mistake that a lot of people make is to not have some cash on hand. Yes, all of the main tourist sites will accept credit cards, but if you're planning to try out some Turkish street food, which I recommend by the way, or visit some smaller shops, you will in most instances need to pay in cash. Speaking of cash, another rookie mistake that a lot of first-time visitors make is exchanging all the cash they need at the airport. There are also plenty of money exchanges throughout the city, and they actually offer much better rates than the airport. However, I truthfully withdrew my money from an ATM machine using my Wise card, as the Wise card exchange rates beat any of the money exchanges I saw in Istanbul, and I could actually also withdraw without incurring any fees. I am not sponsored by Wise, by the way, but I do travel with my Wise card a lot, and so if you are interested in checking out a Wise card and also comparing the rates for yourself, I've included a link in my description box for your reference. This next rookie mistake applies not only to Istanbul but also to basically any city I travel to, but I do like learning a couple of basic phrases of the local language, not only to make my life easier, but also because I see it as a form of respect to the locals. In my experience, most locals are going to appreciate that you made the effort, even if you don't pronounce it correctly, which I didn't most of the time. The two main phrases that I used a lot in Istanbul were mahaba, which means hello, and also teşekkürler, which means thank you. The second one in particular took me forever to remember though, but these are the two phrases that I would recommend you learn before your trip. And these particular phrases will be especially helpful when you're trying to buy something in Istanbul, and that leads quite nicely to rookie mistake number 13, which is buying everything at the Grand Bazaar. Yes, the Grand Bazaar is huge and has absolutely everything, but Istanbul also has plenty of other bazaars, and truthfully, you will find most of the things that you will find at the Grand Bazaar at other places without a lot of the crowds, and also commonly at a much better price. If you want some alternatives, I specifically recommend checking out the Spice Bazaar, the Rasta Bazaar, and the Kadıköy Market. In that same vein, rookie mistake number 14 would be to just eat at the restaurants in the touristy area. There's nothing wrong with them, but they're commonly quite expensive, and also why would you go all the way to Turkey and not try some delicious authentic Turkish street food? There are a few must-eat dishes, and I'm going to cover them in my second video where I show you some of the best things to see, eat, try, and do in Istanbul. But I will say in this video that quite easily, hands down, the best thing I had this trip was a balık durum, aka a fish wrap. Everything from the freshly grilled fish to the spicy, salty roll it was wrapped in was perfection. Rookie mistake number 15 is one that is actually optional, but is also one that I would recommend you do. Allow me to explain. Whilst you can actually enter most of the tourist spots without a tour guide, I would actually recommend you get one. And I know it's controversial because you must be thinking, Steve, you can enter these places by yourself. Why do you need a tour guide? And whilst yes, it was not only helpful to have a tour guide show us some of the most beautiful spots in Istanbul, but also explain to us the historical significance of each location, the best and most important reason why we got a tour guide as first-time visitors was that the tour guide truthfully saved us from so many scams. I actually went on this trip with a group of people, but we actually separated for the tour because some of them didn't want to pay for the tour. And I can tell you now that those that didn't choose to pay for the tour paid a lot more for their tickets, and also for a lot of add-ons that they didn't actually need. I just did a 2-day tour that covered some of the more important spots, and for the rest of the time explored on my own, and I think that's the best combination, and thus would recommend you do the same. If you're interested in the tour that I booked, I've included a link in my description box for your reference. I do hope that you found value in today's video, and if you have, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, all the good things that you know are going to appease those holy YouTube algorithm gods, but much more importantly, as always, is going to make my day as a content creator. By the way, my name is Steve from the Fat Life Project, if we haven't haven't met, I'm an early retiree who spends a lot of my time traveling, and this channel is full of travel guides just like the one that you're watching now that's going to help you navigate yourself in cities around the world like a seasoned pro. And so if traveling is your vibe, definitely hit that subscribe button so that we can go on more fat travel adventures together. Also, if you do have any comments or feedback for me, do leave me a comment in the comment section, as I do love hearing from the people who take time to watch my videos. YouTube thinks that you're going to love these videos that are coming up at the end of this video, and so I look forward to catching you in any one of the videos you choose to watch next. And as always, I hope you have a fantastic day ahead, or that you've already had a good day. I'm gonna see you real soon in the next video.